Good morning. My name is Aaron Harder. I'm with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm here to discuss prosecuting vehicular crimes. One of the first things when we're talking about prosecuting vehicular crimes is the tremendous amount of discovery that vehicular crimes has. In Arizona, one of the instruments that we use is an intoxilizer 8000 and more recently the intoxilizer 9000. But regardless whether it's an intoxilizer or any of the other breath testing instruments, there's several pieces of discovery that needs to go out to the defense. Certain things that need to go out to the defense is records of periodic maintenance. How is the instrument being maintained? What type of fixes have the instrument gone through? Or do they have a quality assurance program? Do they have quality assurance checks? In Arizona, we have quality assurance checks at 30 and 90 days to ensure that the instrument is working properly and accurately. And this is more from an historic standpoint. But the 30-day checks are more for calibration, where the 90-day checks are for calibration and to ensure that the instrument safeguards are working properly and accurately. However, during trial testimony, most of our criminalists are going to testify that the best way to ensure that the instrument is working properly and accurately is at the time of the test, because our records, when that prints out, it does the intoxilizer does a calibration and diagnostic test before the subject test and after the subject test. But regardless, the defense still gets the 30 and 90-day calibration and quality assurance checks, along with any records of periodic maintenance. The next piece of discovery is for blood testing. In Arizona, we also do blood testing in Arizona, and we use gas chromatographs for blood testing for alcohol, and gas chromatography mass spectrometry for testing for drugs in blood. So you're still going to need to disclose the periodic maintenance of the instrument, along with each of the batch data for the run that your particular subject test is in. So in those tests, there's quality controls such as the aqueous controls, the whole blood controls, the mixed volatiles, along with the calibrators, which teaches the instrument what the alcohol concentrations are. So you need to disclose all of those to the defense, along with the calibration curve and any and the chromatographs that go along with those. Now in Arizona, we don't disclose all of the chromatograms for each subject test. We only disclose the chromatograms for the subject test that the defendant's subject test. But the defense does get all of the subject tests for that batch that is sent out. So there's a lot of discovery that goes out with blood testing as well. The next thing that has a lot of discovery component is for collision reconstruction, when we're doing fatal or injury collisions involving impaired drivers or drivers that are driving at excessive speeds. So with the discovery for collision reconstruction, the things that go out is the data points for the roadway evidence. And that can be very voluminous depending on how you're doing it. In Arizona, we use a variety of methods depending on the police agency, from drones to getting the data point field versus also having GPS systems or other measuring systems that we have to send out to the defense, so they get all of those, along with all of the photographs that go out with them. There's also a lot of video surveillance that comes with vehicular crimes as well. We're getting a lot of surveillance from surrounding vehicles that have dash cams, surrounding businesses, surrounding homes, people that are using their phones to videotape collisions. We're getting a lot of that. And the one issue with discovery is, particularly when you're looking at collision reconstruction is it takes up a lot of room. It takes up a lot of memory and a lot of space because there's a tremendous amount of data that comes along with that. So there's some problems or some issues that come with that as far as storage goes, and then how do we get it to the defense? Because sometimes the collision reconstruction, they give us a standalone hard drive that has all of the information on it. So typically we have the defense come in with their own hard drive that we transfer that information onto it. Again, along with the photographs as well. That is specific to collision reconstruction, blood testing, and breath testing. We also have the discovery for just the police reports, the witness statements. Those type of things also have to go out as well. But in vehicular crimes, there's a lot more discovery that we have to provide. So in Arizona, one of the things that I start in my group when I get new attorneys in my bureau, I start them off, and I think the best practice is starting them off with teaching them how to prosecute the impaired driver, whether it's alcohol or whether it's drugs, and teaching them what impairment is. So, and along with that, we're showing them, okay, what is the driving behaviors that we are looking at? What are the NHTSA driving behaviors that we look at? What are signs and symptoms of impairment that we see from them? Are the defendants using the vehicles for balance? Do they have balance issues? Are they having trouble finding things? When officers ask for their driver's license and insurance, are they flipping through their wallets? Are they looking in the glove box and finding and handing different things? What are the signs and symptoms of impairment? And it goes a lot beyond that, because now it's not just alcohol. We have a lot of drug impairment as well that we have to look at. So we need to keep looking, so the attorneys have to keep up on signs and symptoms of impairment. The other thing that we show them is standard field sobriety test. Are the field sobriety tests, what are they designed to do? They are designed for divided attention, and which ones are important for the tests, how to interpret them, and how to express those to a jury so they understand that the field sobriety tests are designed to test divided attention. And that's one of the things that we show them. So, and then there's also drug recognition experts, so DREs. So how we explain to them how the drug recognition program works. And this is for drugs and drug impairment, because there are 7 categories and they have different signs and symptoms of impairment, and also drugs work, how the drugs work against each other or with each other, and how they show that. So we start off with that to get them used to impairment. How do they show that to a jury? What questions do they ask? Some of the things I think one of the best practices is to send new prosecutors or existing prosecutors that are doing these cases, send them to drug recognition school, DRE school. It's a 2-week course, but it's invaluable. Send them to A-RIDE so they learn standard field sobriety tests and how the officers are taught to administer those, or send them to horizontal gaze nystagmus school so they learn that HGN as well. So sending them to these schools lets them see what the officers are doing, so when they're reading reports, then they know what to expect when they're reading the reports. And I think that is one of the best practices, is to send them to these schools, and also then they interact with law enforcement as well. So now once the prosecutors become very competent with prosecuting the impaired driver, whether it's alcohol or drugs, then we move on to impaired driving, or to fatal and injury collisions. And that is where we go into the collision reconstruction. Now we're working with physics. We're working with Newton's 3 laws of motion and roadway evidence. So now they're learning how to interpret roadway evidence when the collision reconstruction is discussing it in their reports. What type of evidence are we looking for those collision reconstructions? and what are some of the pitfalls, so we can learn how to ask the questions on direct, cross-examination, and redirect. One of the best practices, again, I think of, I have prosecutors that are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we go out to fatal and injury collisions. And that is I think one of the ways that prosecutors really learn collision reconstruction is when they're at the scene and law enforcement is walking them through the scene. They learn how the instruments that they're using to measure the scenes. They can look around to see what the roadway evidence is and how the markings are, and then the officers can explain what they are seeing. And it is, I think, an invaluable tool for prosecuting a case that you've been out at the scene, or other cases, because you can use that knowledge when you're prosecuting other cases. So I think one of the best practices is to send prosecutors to collision scenes. I mean, the downfall is they're usually at night, in the middle of the night, but the training is invaluable to go there. One of the other things I do, particularly for toxicologists, is I also have toxicologists come in and do trainings during my meetings about what kind of questions, how do we ask questions to toxicologists, and then how do we relate that to impairment, and then the impairment, how do we relate that to the collision itself. So there's a lot of different facets that it all fits together. One of the other unique aspects of prosecuting vehicular crimes is defendants, and how do we balance a defendant that has never been in trouble with the law before. And that's a lot of the defendants that we have are defendants that have never been in trouble with the law before and have made a horrendous decision to drink or do drugs and get behind the wheel of a car, and then they are involved in they cause a collision, they either kill someone or seriously injure someone. And how do we balance this person who's never been in trouble with the law, who didn't intend to do what they did, however, they made the choice to drink and drive and cause these horrendous consequences? How do we balance that with what the victims want, and with the consequences of their actions? And I think that's one of the difficult things with vehicular crimes. Now, we also have the defendants that have horrendous drinking and driving histories, and they just keep doing it over and over and over again. But how do we balance that as well when they injure or kill someone, and what is the proper justice for that? And finally, probably one of the most important things that we do in prosecuting vehicular crimes is our interactions with victims. Because victims, these are true victims that are literally in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the prosecutors with these cases have to be very sympathetic and empathetic to these victims and listen to the victims, but also balance that we also have a job to do, that we don't necessarily, we don't represent the victims themselves, we represent the state, so we have to balance that, but we do have to be there for the victims. And we have to keep our objectivity, because the victims are speaking with emotions. And so we have to watch that. So that's one of the unique things with working with these crime victims. The other thing that we have to deal with crimes victims is their victims' rights. In particular, with discovery, it's like, what do the redaction of their information from written reports, but now we also have body-worn camera and surveillance, and that takes a lot of time and resources to redact all of those to ensure that victims' rights are complied with and that the defense is not getting their personal information. So there's those aspects, but we also have to, be able to explain to them what the law is, get their feelings on what should happen to the defendant, as far as for plea negotiations, things of that nature, and balance what the victims want along with the unique issues with vehicular crimes cases. And these cases can be difficult. because it's not always cut and dry who caused a collision. But overall, prosecuting vehicular crimes is very rewarding, and it impacts a lot of crime victims, and it impacts the community. If you have any questions regarding vehicular crimes and prosecuting vehicular crimes cases, again, my name is Aaron Harder. I'm the Bureau Chief of the Vehicular Crimes Unit. I've actually been doing this for over 16 years, specifically prosecuting vehicular crimes. That is my email address and my phone number. Email me or give me a call, and I'm more than willing to help you out with whatever you need. Thank you very much, and have a great day.